Alright guys, welcome to day 4 of the virtual yoga retreat. I'm Caroline and I'll be guiding us today through, when I start to kind of dip our toes into the waters of inversions. And inversions for me, I'm full on addicted. They're a really fun way to literally flip your perspective upside down. They're really great for cardio, for your heart health. And they're just full body strengtheners. Some people are not keen on inversions at all. And if you're not, I'm gonna offer a couple different options that we can do so that we can make this accessible, because just because we're going on our hands doesn't necessarily mean that we have to. We can use the floor, we can use different props to help achieve the sensations of yoga poses by doing them a little bit differently. So today we're gonna go over crow pose, which is kind of the king of arm balances and inversions. Once you get that one, it just kind of rolls like clockwork. You start becoming a little more comfortable. We're also gonna do headstand, forearm stand, and handstand. Hands. Yeah. So start with crow pose. Today we are gonna need a wall, a bolster or a pillow or a blanket, and 2 blocks would be really helpful. So I'll demonstrate crow pose in case you've never heard of it before. It's kind of like a Jackie Chan move. I always feel like a badass doing this. So if you've been watching the videos, if you've been a part of this yoga retreat, you'll remember the quadruped pose, like hands and knees. So your hands are just as wide as your shoulders. We're clawing down to the fingertips. We're lifting the arches over your hands, and we're dialing the hands out to the side so that we can start to kind of wrap the triceps back. From here, we're gonna focus on bending your elbows, straight back behind you, and this might be where you're working today. And to prep for this, you can do little push-ups in just tabletop pose, which is really cool, and definitely building a lot of strength in your shoulders and arms. And crow pose, you're gonna wanna kind of come up into this little perch. We're gonna bring your knees right on top of your elbows, and we're gonna just lean forward. It's very important we don't jump, and you can maybe start to explore lifting 1 foot at a time. So this is crow pose. To come down, just very quietly bring your feet to the floor, and we're gonna kind of break that pose down. So we'll need some props. We're gonna use 2 blocks to get started. So to find out, we're gonna use this 1 block as a perch. So you're gonna get your toes up on it, and we're gonna use this block, our head is gonna go on it. So this is just kind of a fun way to try things out without, there's a lot of people who are afraid of inversions, and it's very valid fear, but we're really not that far from the floor, and if you fall, which I have fallen several times, I've gotten back up, and you just get back onto your mat and try again. But if you really have a big fear about it, you can take a blanket or something soft, just right in front of your face. So we're gonna bring your knees on top of your elbows, bend your elbows, and then shift forward so that your head lands on the block. From here, we're gonna lift your right leg, or you could just stay, with both feet on the floor if that feels better to you. And then you can lift your other leg, and you can actually keep doing this exercise by lifting 1 leg and lifting the other leg. And that's a really great way to kind of build up into this pose. If you don't feel like you have the hand and arm strength just yet, you can come to lay on your back and access crow pose in a different way. So from your back, we'll hug your knees into your chest, and we'll reach your arms up to the ceiling. So we can bring your knees just to meet your elbows, bend your elbows, hug your heels in towards your bum, and then lift your head. So this is just a funny upside down version of crow pose, but you're getting that core integrated. So you're feeling all of the muscles of the core fire up and work for you to stabilize you and keep you strong. We'll relax the head down. You can just kind of move your knees from side to side. Tuck your chin a little bit, lengthen the neck, and take a few big breaths here. These are not easy, that is for sure. I'll do one cleansing breath in through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Okay. When you're ready, we'll come up to seated and we'll do one more variation of crow pose. So for this one, for those of you who are a little fearful of falling on your face, we'll take a pillow or a bolster, bring your hands as wide as your shoulders, and we're gonna perch up. You can come to stand also to get into crow pose. You're gonna bend your elbows a little bit, take your knees on top of the elbows. For more advanced practitioners, they take their knees like all the way up into their armpits, and that is definitely scary. So stay wherever you want. The knees on top of the elbows was one of the cues that really helped me kind of conquer this pose, because you're just stacking your joints. So you're stacking, your knees on top of your elbows, and then the strength of your forearms is going to be like kind of what's keeping you uplifted. Strength of your hands too. So from here, we're going to lean forward. You can bring your head to the pillow or to your bolster, and you can start to lift one leg at a time here. Squeeze your heels up towards your bum, and then maybe you can use your fingertips to start to lift your head up. All right, that's tough. So that's a really fun one. There's also like one-legged variations and a lot of different things you can do, from crow pose to headstand. It's kind of fun. So that's a really good one maybe that'll be your new intention, is to master crow pose by the end of this quarantine. So anyways, okay, we're gonna move on to headstand. Headstand was the first inversion that I got that I felt super solid in, and it definitely got me hooked and got me wanting to progress to forearm stand and handstand. There is one thing about headstand that I really don't like. A lot of people I see just really push their head, they put a lot of weight into their head when they're upside down in headstand, and it always concerns me because our neck vertebrae really aren't that strong, and putting your whole body weight on them can be just a little awkward, but you're gonna wanna really work on the strength of your neck. So I'm gonna demonstrate for those of you who may not know exactly what headstand is. And there's two different ways to do it. The first way, my favorite way, is you interlace your fingers and you bring your forearms down to the floor. We don't want our elbows to be splayed out wide, and we don't want them to be too close in. You want them to be just right. And the elbows, you just want them to be about as wide as your shoulders. A good way to check in with this is you can actually grab onto your elbows and make sure that the distance is right, and then interlace your fingers. We'll bring your head down to the floor and tuck your toes and lift up into a little downward facing dog. And from here, we'll walk your toes in as close as you can to your face, and you'll lift one foot up, and you can maybe take that one up to the ceiling. And we want to feel like we're pushing into our forearms so much that our head almost feels weightless. And then you can maybe start to take this right leg back towards a wall, and then maybe take the left leg up. You want to squeeze your glutes and use your core to really take some of the weight out of I don't know, it doesn't feel so bulky when you do that. And just really work on pressing the forearms down into the floor. Very, very easy way to get out of this is take one foot down and just quietly set your foot down and take a little child's pose, because that's hard. So we're gonna come to the wall and we're gonna practice this a couple of different ways. All right, so we're at the wall now. We'll definitely need 2 blocks and a blanket potentially if you need it. So one thing I hear a lot of people complain about is their head, like the pressure on the top of their head. So one way that we can fix that is we can double or triple up your mat. So just like fold it in a little bit, do another little folding, and here we go. We have a little more comfort for the top of the head. So you're gonna bring the forearms down, grab onto opposite elbows, and then bring your hands pretty close to the wall. We're gonna bring your head down and then tuck your toes and lift your hips up. Walk your toes all the way in, and you're gonna have to really use your core. From here, we'll take one leg up to the ceiling. Your dominant leg is best to kind of work on at first, and then start to kick up with this left leg. And a good way to practice this is just bend your left leg, take your right foot kind of down a little bit, and then spring the left leg and the right leg up to the wall. So from here, we wanna, maybe you can find some hovering time. We're really rooting down through the forearms so that you're not putting too much pressure in your head. And then to come down, just one foot lightly touches the floor. Take a little child's pose just to kind of reorientate yourself. And then you can inhale and rise up when you're ready. So one last thing, maybe I should have mentioned this earlier. We have a sweet spot on our head of where, like, you see these beautiful African women and, pictures, National Geographic, carrying these like huge vases full of water or, baskets full of laundry and stuff. And there's a sweet spot on your head where it's the stacking again, the stacking of the bones, the stacking of all of your joints, and creating this kind of like rod. So you can take one hand onto the top of your head and just press down, just right on like the very crown, like if you had a crown on your head right there, and it should feel painless. If you've ever had a neck injury, I probably wouldn't do this pose. We'll work on forearm stand. That's kind of the next pose we're gonna be working on, and that's a doozy. Forearm stand is one of the hardest poses that I've ever learned. It was just a lot of consistency, a lot of dedication, a lot of core work, and then it started to pay off. It took me probably about 5 years, to be honest, and some of these too, like I did not get good at headstand overnight. It was definitely a progression. So practice, practice, practice. We're gonna do one more variation of headstand, and this one I really don't love, but some people feel like this is easier to access for them than the interlaced fingers version. So what we're gonna do is, this one is called tripod headstand. You want your hands to be as wide as your shoulders, and if we're practicing at the wall, you want your hands to be about an arm's length away from the wall. And then we're gonna take your head, this sweet spot, really close to the wall. So you're thinking about like a tripod camera. We wanna have that same kind of distance, but you're gonna have to play with what feels right for you. Like maybe walking your hands in a little bit more, maybe, taking your hands a little bit closer. So anyways, from here, a really good way that we can support our neck without putting too much pressure into our head is by taking 2 blocks right up next to the wall and bring your hands just right behind your blocks. We're gonna lower down so that we can bring your shoulders to rest on tops of the blocks, and then we're gonna press yourself up into a little downward dog. From here, don't let the elbows splay out. We wanna hug them in, and we're gonna bring your right knee on top of the right elbow. You can stay here, or maybe you can bring your left knee on top of the left elbow. And you'll feel, you can actually even hover your head off the floor almost completely. And if you feel comfortable here, we'll lower down, take a little rest, and go into it so that like kind of the kicking up to the wall way. So bring your shoulders back down on top of your blocks, lift your legs, and we'll take your dominant leg up to the ceiling, and then you can work on those kicks. We want to think about them being like butter, being really smooth. And if this feels okay, you can stay here for a little while. You can take the toes off the wall and hover. The support of the blocks is really great, actually. And if you want, you can bend your knees and then bring your knees on top of your elbows for a little, this is almost like crow pose. And you can lift your head up off the floor, squeeze your heels in, and then softly come down. Take a little break, a little child's pose. Take a breath or two. And rise on up when you're ready. All right, so hopefully those are some cool ideas. We're now gonna go into forearm stand. I know this is kind of going at a quick pace, but I wanna get these all in so that you guys can have a bunch of different things to play with. So, forearm stand, that's the next one. It's a beast of a pose, like I said. We're gonna take your mat back out long, and we're gonna need a block, maybe 2 blocks. So we'll take the block in between your pointer finger and your thumb. Like you're making an L shape, that's how this block is gonna fit into the hands. We're gonna bring your block right up to the wall and bring your forearms down to the wall. So this block is just helping you find your midline. It's helping you squeeze into the center. And we don't want the elbows to be splayed out really far. We want to keep the elbows just right underneath the shoulders. Grab onto your elbows to check your distance. So I'm just going to demonstrate forearm stand, and then we're going to talk about it. So we'll lift up kind of into a down dog. And you take one leg up at a time, or both legs if you're crazy strong. And this is it. So you'll bring one foot down. To get out of it, take a little break. Take a little breath. And we'll go ahead and start talking about this. So, like I said, your traps, this big muscle kind of at the top of the shoulders, this is where this muscle needs to be really strong, and you want to really work on kind of pressing your forearms down into the floor. It's this like rooting to rise up sensation. So a couple of things I worked on to progress up to this. Number one is dolphin pose. Dolphin pose is one of my favorite poses. I teach it in almost all of my classes, and you can do it with the block or without the block. So I'll do it without the block since you already saw one way to do it. Another way is you can interlace your fingers just like a forearm stand or just like headstand. Grab onto your elbows, check your distance, and lift up. So the thing with forearm stand is our head is not resting on the floor. We're keeping it lifted by squeezing your traps and your shoulders up towards your ears pretty much. And with the fingers interlaced, it might feel better in your shoulders to do this. That's fine, stick with that, or maybe you prefer to have the arms parallel like railroad tracks, whatever. It's always good to try different things, don't be so stuck and rigid with one way of doing stuff. So from here, this is a good dolphin pose. You should, I don't know, there's a lot of different schools of thought on what to do with the head. In the traditional yoga world, they say take your gaze towards your hands. What I find this does is the neck and your low back, they talk to each other, they communicate. So whenever you arch your back and arch your neck, it kind of helps you go into that extension. But when you tuck it in and like find more stability, when you move your neck around, you'll feel the low back like it wants to move. So for me, I personally, over the years, have decided that it's better to keep the neck, like the gaze, either towards your toes, especially in dolphin, and it's nice and relaxing for the neck. But when you start to go and kick up, you might want to take your gaze kind of in between the forearms. So we can lift one leg up here, and we'll work on the hop. So like bend this left knee and take a little hop, and kind of build yourself up You'll feel, a lot of your weight shift into your hands and your fingers. Whoop, the wall's there to catch you. Squeeze your glutes. Reach up through your fingers, reach up through your toes. And slowly lower. Okay. So that one's really hard. You can just use dolphin pose if you don't feel like kicking your legs all the way up. And I promise you'll start to kind of develop those muscles accordingly. Okay, so now we're gonna do handstand. Handstand is super hard and it's very, very fun. If this is something you're interested in, it can build a lot of strength in your shoulders, your full body really. So we want to work on finding mountain pose in handstand. That's like the main goal is we want every muscle to be alive and active, and we really want to just like start to cultivate that strength. And like I said earlier, it's just going to take some time to start to develop these practices. So there's 2 common ways of practicing handstands. At least, I don't know, there's probably a ton of different ways of practicing handstands, but these are the 2 common ones that I've run into. Number 1 is the yoga way of doing your handstands. It's kind of like your hands are about as wide as your mat, and you take your gaze like up towards the wall, and when you kick up, you find the wall and you keep your shoulders away from your ears. And I tried this way for years and years, and it just wasn't working for me, and it was a little annoying because I was putting so much time into it, and I wanted to start to, see some of the benefits of that. But I ended up hiring a private coach who, Liza, she's amazing with Fly Circus Space here in New Orleans, and I highly recommend her if you want to kind of hone your handstanding skills. But she comes from more of a gymnastics perspective, and that's kind of the 2 perspectives. There's like the yoga kind of way of doing handstands, and then there's the gymnastics way of doing handstands, and gymnasts have really got it going on. They're incredible. If you watch the Olympics, holy moly. And they actually teach you to keep your hands a lot closer together versus wide. And they also encourage you, like I've been encouraging you, to squeeze your shoulders up towards your ears to activate your to activate your trapezius muscle. So when you do that and you really work on the press, you're going to feel more buoyant, you're going to feel more supported when you're on your hands. And it's also funny because a lot of gymnast teachers, they teach you to use your fingertips so much in handstand that when your feet are up on the wall, you just press into your fingers to get your feet off the wall versus like taking one foot up and trying to find that line, that balancing line. Also, you want to squeeze all of your muscles. Every muscle that you have in your body it should be working. And sometimes just kicking up to the wall is scary enough. So, just try to like center yourself and try to really focus on the things that you want to accomplish while you're up there. But the first couple of times, if you're new to this, just be patient with yourself and just recognize that it might take a little bit of time to really perfect this pose. So I'm going to show you the more like gymnastics way of doing a handstand, and then a couple of different skills and a couple of different drills that we can use to start to cultivate that strength. So hands to the wall. Starting in kind of a tabletop pose. Take your hips up and back into a down dog. Go ahead and go through your mountain pose alignment. So ground them through the 4 corners of the hands. Lift the arches of the hands, and then we're gonna stack your shoulders over your wrists. So lean forward. Take 1 foot a little more forward, and then lift your dominant leg. And from here, I want to go ahead and start firing up all these muscles, like fingertips, forearms, traps, core, glutes, everything's on. And from here, we can just start taking little tiny hops. You may not even get all the way up to the wall, but hopefully you will one day. And when you get up to the wall, you want to work on, just like I was talking about, squeezing the shoulders up towards the ears, and then using your fingertips to pull your feet off the wall. Ooh! And you might get a little hang time. You might fall like me. Whatever happens, just try to be quiet when you're coming down. It's gonna save your feet. You don't want to stub your toe. There's another way to access this pose that isn't so hard. It's called L shape. And for most of us, kicking up to handstand is like the hardest part. So once you work on doing that enough, it'll start to come more naturally. But if kicking up to the wall is hard for you and you still want to access this pose, this is a really good way of doing things. So you can take one foot up to the wall or to your very massive door, whatever it is you have, your window. And we're gonna use that distance to kind of figure out how far you want to be away from the wall. So turn around, bring your hands to where your feet are. You can bend your knees to do this, and we're gonna walk your feet back to the wall. So from here, arms are straight. Activate all the finger muscles, activate the four corners of your hand, squeeze your shoulders up towards your ears, and then we're gonna walk on up the wall. Try your best to straighten your legs and really work on squeezing the triceps. Press out through your heels. And then to come down, one foot comes down. Take a little flop on the floor because it's really hard. So good job. That's gonna kind of conclude this day 4 of the virtual yoga retreat. And we'll do a little restorative practice for day 5 since you guys have worked so hard. So thank you so much for watching.